comment? It felt like just another passing line, the kind he drops all the time. Calm voice, steady tone, nothing too loud, nothing too direct. But this time, something was different. This time, that one quiet, something just shifted, and nobody saw it coming. The moment Joe Rogan made that subtle T remark, didn't stay quiet. It started spreading, growing, turning into something much bigger than anyone expected. At first, it didn't even seem serious. There was no name mentioned, no direct call-out, just a hint, just enough for people to connect the dots. And the internet? It did exactly what it always does. It picked it apart. People replayed the clip again and again. They slowed it down, watched his face, listened to the tone, trying to figure out what he really meant. And within hours, that one small moment turned into a full-blown conversation. But what made this situation different wasn't just what was said, it was who it was about. Because the moment people realized the comment was aimed at Erika Kirk, everything changed. This wasn't just another topic, this wasn't just another debate, this was personal. Erika wasn't trending because of controversy, she wasn't someone constantly in drama, she was someone people had been watching quietly, someone known for staying composed, especially during a very emotional time in her life. And that's why the reaction hit harder. Because when someone who is already dealing with something serious gets pulled into a massive public conversation, the tone shifts instantly. At that point, the internet split fast. One side said Joe Rogan crossed a line. They believed he took something personal and turned it into public discussion. The other side defended him, saying he didn't do anything wrong, that he was just asking questions, just sharing thoughts like he always does. And just like that, there was no middle ground. But here's where things started getting intense. Erika didn't respond. Not immediately, no tweet, no video, nothing. And that silence? It made everything louder. The longer she stayed quiet, the more people talked, the more they speculated, the more they built their own stories around what was happening. People started digging into her past. Old clips, old interviews, even small moments that never meant anything before suddenly became evidence for theories. Her silence was being analyzed like it was a message. And that's how fast things flip online. One comment turns into a story. That story turns into something people start believing. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan kept doing what he always does. He stayed on his platform, continued his conversations, didn't react to the chaos building around that one comment. And for a while, it looked like he still had control of the situation. But that didn't last. Because after days of silence, Erika Kirk stepped in. And the way she did it changed everything. She didn't post something emotional. She didn't go on a rant. She didn't try to fight the noise with more noise. Instead, she dropped a simple video. No music, no edits, just her sitting there, looking directly into the camera. And the moment that video started, you could feel it. This wasn't someone reacting. This was someone taking control. She didn't take time to build up. She didn't circle around the topic. She went straight to it. She said she stayed quiet because she was grieving, not because she had something to hide. And just like that, everything flipped. Because suddenly, the story wasn't about what Joe Rogan said anymore. It was about what she just said. It reframed the entire situation. What people thought was suspicious silence became something completely different. It became strength. It became control. And then she followed it with another line that hit even harder. She made it clear that no one has the right to turn her pain into entertainment. No names, no direct mention. But everyone knew exactly who it was aimed at. That was the moment the power shifted. For the first time since this started, Joe Rogan wasn't controlling the narrative anymore. Erika was. People started replaying her video the same way they replayed his clip earlier. But this time, the tone was different. It wasn't about questioning, it was about reacting. Support flooded in. Comments everywhere praising her calm response. People saying she handled it perfectly, that she didn't lose control, that she didn't give the internet what it expected. And that's what made it powerful. But not everyone agreed. Rogan's supporters pushed back hard. They didn't switch sides. They doubled down. Some called her response calculated. Others said it felt like a performance. And just like that, the divide got even deeper. Now, it wasn't just about what happened. It was about what people believed happened. And once belief gets involved, things don't settle down. They escalate. But then something unexpected happened. Joe Rogan stayed silent. No response, no clarification, nothing. At first, it didn't seem strange. Silence can sometimes feel like control, like someone choosing not to feed the situation. But as time passed, that silence started to feel different. People began asking questions. Why isn't he responding? He started this conversation, so why isn't he finishing it? And the longer he said nothing, the louder those questions became. At the same time, Erika didn't keep posting. She didn't try to stay in the spotlight. She didn't drop follow-up videos or interviews. She stepped back. And somehow, that made her presence even stronger. because now people weren't just reacting to what she said, they were waiting for what she might say next. They kept going back to that video, watching it again, analyzing every word, every pause. Then she made another move. Not a big one, not loud, just one simple line. She said there is no single way to deal with grief. That was it. No explanation, no extra context. But that line spread everywhere, because it could mean so many things. It could be about her situation. It could be about how people were judging her. It could be about everything. And that's why it worked. It kept the conversation alive without giving anyone something to twist completely. Meanwhile, an old clip of Joe Rogan started circulating, a moment where he talked about how media narratives grow, how stories get out of control, how people build things without full context, and suddenly people started connecting it to what was happening now. They began saying this is exactly what he warned about, and now he's part of it. That added another layer to the situation, because now it wasn't just about Erika or his comment, it was about his role in the entire thing. And still, he said nothing. That silence started to feel heavy. It didn't feel like control anymore. It felt like something else, like hesitation, like avoidance. One viral post summed it up perfectly, saying you can't start something and then disappear when it grows bigger. That line spread fast, because it captured exactly what people were thinking. At the same time, Erika's impact kept growing. Not because she was constantly posting, but because what she already said kept reaching new people. Every time someone new saw her video, the reaction was the same: surprise, respect, curiosity. Then another shift happened. People started asking a different question, not who was right or wrong, but why did this blow up so fast? And that question changed everything, because now the focus wasn't just on the two of them, it was on the internet itself, on how quickly things spread, how fast stories form, how easily people jump to conclusions. The situation became bigger than both of them, but even then, it didn't stop. Erika dropped another quiet line. She said you can't win when people enjoy watching you fall. And that hit hard, because it didn't feel like it was aimed at just one person. It felt like it was aimed at everyone: the critics, the media, the audience, and once again, the conversation exploded. But this time, it felt different. People weren't just arguing, they were thinking, reflecting, and when that happens, the entire tone shifts. Still, one question remained. Joe Rogan hadn't responded, not once. And that's what kept everything alive. Because as long as there's no response, there's no closure. And without closure, people keep watching, keep waiting. Now, the situation isn't just about who started it, it's about who handled it better. One side stayed calm, spoke carefully, then stepped back. The other side stayed silent the entire time. And that contrast is what people are focused on now. Because in a world where everyone is constantly reacting, the one who doesn't react stands out the most. At this point, this isn't just a moment anymore. It's something bigger. A full conversation about how things work online, how quickly narratives form, how hard they are to stop once they start. And right now, there's still no ending. No final statement, no clear answer, just questions. Will Joe Rogan finally respond? Will he explain what he meant? Or will he stay silent and let that silence define everything? Because if he speaks, everything could change again. The narrative could flip one more time. The conversation could go in a completely different direction. But if he doesn't, then this silence might become the most important part of the entire story. And that's where things stand right now. One moment turned into a storm. One response flipped the narrative. And now, everything is waiting on what happens next. Because this isn't over, not even close. And as the situation keeps unfolding, something even more interesting starts to happen. The focus slowly moves away from just the words that were said, and instead, it shifts toward behavior. People begin comparing not just statements, but reactions. Not just opinions, but control. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't just about a comment anymore. It became about presence. Who showed up, how they showed up, and who stepped back at the right time. Erika Kirk's approach started getting more attention for one simple reason. She didn't try to win every moment. She didn't rush to respond to every opinion. She didn't try to fight every critic. Instead, she chose her timing carefully. She spoke once, made her point clear, and then stepped away again. And in a space where people are constantly talking, constantly reacting, that kind of restraint stands out more than anything else. People began calling it strategic. Others called it natural strength. Some even said it felt like she understood the internet better than the people trying to analyze her. Because instead of feeding the chaos, she let it burn out on its own while keeping control of her own narrative. But at the same time, the pressure on Joe Rogan didn't disappear. In fact, it slowly grew stronger. Because silence works in different ways depending on the situation. At the start, his silence felt normal. It felt like confidence, like he didn't need to respond to every reaction. But as days passed, and as the conversation kept evolving without him, That same silence started to raise more questions. People began revisiting the original clip again. But this time, they weren't just analyzing what he said. They were analyzing why he hasn't said anything since. And that shift made a big difference. Because now, the conversation wasn't just about one moment. It became about accountability, about whether staying silent is a choice or a strategy, and more importantly, whether that strategy is working or not. Some people still defended him strongly. They argued that not every comment needs a follow-up, that the internet often overreacts and creates drama out of small things. They believed that responding would only make the situation bigger. But others didn't see it that way. They felt that once a statement creates this level of reaction, especially when it involves someone's personal situation, there comes a point where silence stops being neutral. It starts to feel like avoidance. And that's where the real tension sits right now, because both sides are holding on to their beliefs stronger than ever, and neither side is backing down. At the same time, content creators, commentators, and influencers keep adding fuel to the situation. New breakdowns keep appearing. New theories keep forming. Every small detail gets turned into a bigger discussion. Some creators focus on Erika's delivery. They point out how calm she stayed, how she controlled her tone, how she never raised her voice. They call it a masterclass in handling pressure. Others focus on the timing. They question why she waited before responding. They suggest that the delay itself was part of the strategy, that every move was planned carefully. And then there are those who focus on Joe Rogan's past. They bring up older clips, older statements, older conversations, trying to connect patterns, trying to understand whether this moment fits into a bigger picture. And all of this keeps the story alive, because every new angle adds another layer. Every new opinion brings in a new audience. And once something reaches this level, it doesn't fade quickly. It evolves. Another interesting shift starts happening in the audience itself. At first, people were quick to react, quick to choose sides, quick to defend or criticize. But now, some people are stepping back and looking at the situation differently. They're starting to question not just what happened, but how it happened. How did one small comment turn into something this big? Why did it spread so fast? Why did people react the way they did? And those questions open up a much deeper conversation. Because this isn't just about two individuals anymore. It's about how the internet works, how attention works, how quickly something can go from a single moment to a full-blown debate across platforms. People are realizing that the speed of reaction plays a huge role, that sometimes things grow not because of what was said, but because of how people respond to it. And in this case, both reactions played a part. Joe Rogan's initial comment created the spark. Erika Kirk's response changed the direction. And the audience? They turned it into a fire. Now, there's also a growing group of people who believe that the real story isn't about conflict at all. They believe it's about control, about who understands the system better. Because if you look closely, Erika didn't try to shut down the conversation. She didn't try to argue with every voice. Instead, she redirected it. She shifted the focus from suspicion to empathy, from speculation to reality, from noise to clarity. And that shift is what gave her the upper hand in many people's eyes. But again, not everyone agrees. Some still believe that the entire situation was shaped carefully, that every word, every pause, every decision was part of a bigger plan. They see it as a calculated move rather than a natural response. And that difference in perception is what keeps the divide alive. Because in situations like this, truth becomes less about facts and more about interpretation. People don't just see what happens, they see what they believe is happening. And that belief shapes everything. Meanwhile, the silence from Joe Rogan continues to hang over the entire situation. It's still the biggest unanswered piece, the biggest question mark. Because no matter how much the conversation grows, no matter how many opinions are shared, there's always that one thought in the background. What will happen when he finally speaks? Because if he does, everything could shift again. If he explains his comment, some people might understand his perspective better. If he apologizes, it could calm things down. If he doubles down, it could ignite everything again. And if he continues to stay silent, then that silence itself becomes the final message. Right now, it feels like the entire internet is in a waiting phase, watching, refreshing, looking for the next move. Because everyone knows this kind of situation rarely ends quietly. There's always one more twist, one more moment that changes everything again. And until that happens, the conversation stays open. People keep debating, keep analyzing, keep choosing sides, because this isn't just about what happened anymore. It's about what it represents, about how quickly narratives form, about how people react under pressure, about how silence can sometimes speak louder than words, and most importantly, about who really holds the power in moments like this. Is it the person with the bigger platform, or the person who knows exactly when to speak and when to stay quiet? That question is still unanswered. And until it is, this story isn't going anywhere. It's still building, still growing, still waiting for that one moment that could change everything all over again.